Why was everyone laughing when she walked in? The command room was already thick with noise, the hum of monitors, the shuffling of papers, low murmurs of strategy. But when she entered, the laughter had a different edge. A woman, alone, in a grease-stained flight suit, carrying her helmet under one arm like a soldier still smelling of burnt jet fuel. She didn't flinch at the stares. She didn't slow her steps. The SEAL Admiral leaned back in his chair, amusement glinting in his eyes. "So," he asked, smirking, "what's your call sign, pilot?" A few chuckles rippled around the table. Officers exchanged knowing looks, the kind that said this must be a mix-up. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she set her helmet gently on the edge of the conference table. Its visor caught the harsh fluorescent light, a ghostly reflection of her face, calm, unreadable. Then she said it. "Night Fox." 2 words, barely a whisper. And the room went dead silent. The Admiral's smirk faltered first. The name hung in the air, heavy and electric. "Night Fox," he repeated, slower this time, like he was afraid of what it meant. Everyone in that room had heard the rumors about a ghost pilot, a name that popped up once, encrypted chatter buried deep in Navy comms. Night Fox. Classified, unconfirmed, almost mythical. Some said she wasn't real at all. An AI system gone rogue. A fabrication. But there she was, flesh, blood, and silence that swallowed the room whole. 2 weeks ago, a drone strike operation over the Arabian Sea had gone catastrophically wrong. Entire squadrons vanished from radar. Debris fields scattered over 100 miles of open water. It was buried under layers of clearance, the kind of mission that never reached the news, never even reached the families. Only one name had resurfaced in the static: Night Fox. And now she stood here, breathing, scarred, alive. The Admiral cleared his throat, forcing his authority back into his voice. "Miss, this is a restricted operation briefing. You're in the wrong room." She didn't move, didn't blink, just placed a small drive on the table beside her helmet. "Sir," she said quietly, her voice level, steady, the voice of someone who had nothing left to prove but everything to protect. "You're planning Operation Falcon Shield." The Admiral frowned. "How do you?" "You're missing a key variable," she interrupted softly. "Wind corridor shift over Sector 19. If you fly your birds there, they'll never make it out." Every head turned. An intel officer frowned, scrolling through his tablet. "That's classified terrain modeling. How the hell would she?" "How do you know that?" the Admiral demanded. She met his eyes without hesitation. "Because I was the one who flew through it, alone, at night." The air changed again. Even the machines seemed to hum quieter. He studied her, the scar down her neck, still pink and healing, the faint burn marks near her collar, the flight badge sewn imperfectly back on her sleeve. There was no arrogance in her tone, no demand for recognition, just facts, hard-earned and paid for in the kind of hours most men didn't survive. The Admiral exhaled slowly. "Your name, Cade, right?" "Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cade," she said. Then again, with an almost invisible hint of defiance, "Night Fox." Someone dropped a pen. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the stillness. The intelligence officer near the screen turned pale. "Sir," he whispered, "that's the pilot who saved Task Force Blackbird last month, the one we listed as KIA." The Admiral's face hardened. He turned to her, searching for something behind those calm eyes. "You were declared dead, Lieutenant." "I know," she said quietly, "but the report was wrong." He leaned forward, voice low, measured. "You went down in the Arabian Sea. We recovered nothing, not a signal, not a call. How did you make it out?" For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, a memory, maybe a scream buried under too much salt water and static. But she only said, "That's not what matters right now." She stepped forward and tapped the digital map in the center of the table. "What matters is that your current plan will kill everyone you send in." The Admiral glanced at the map, skeptical. But as she spoke, the disbelief began to fade. The wind corridors shifted after the last storm season, she explained. You're using outdated terrain radar. The missile lock zones overlap with the new canyon drifts. You won't see them until you're already inside the kill box. An operations tech hesitated, then began cross-referencing her claims. Within seconds, his face drained of color. Sir, she's right. A silence heavier than guilt settled across the room. The admiral finally spoke. Where'd you get this data, Lieutenant Commander? She looked at him, her expression unreadable. From memory. He stared at her, then at the others, all men who suddenly seemed unsure of the ground they stood on. She leaned over the table, pointing out each vector, each corridor. You'll need to fly 30 meters lower through this channel, then curve east over Sector 17. Sync timing with satellite drift at 400 hours. Anything later, and you'll be painting targets for their radar. She spoke with surgical precision. No hesitation, no ego, just truth. No one interrupted her. When she finished, the admiral stood. Slowly. The air between them was no longer filled with laughter or doubt, but something else, quiet recognition. He extended his hand. Lieutenant Commander, he said softly, you're cleared to continue. For the first time, she allowed herself a faint smile. It wasn't pride. It wasn't triumph. It was something else, relief maybe, or exhaustion disguised as strength. And yet, something in her tone, in her movements, hinted at a deeper story she hadn't told. A reason why she'd walked into this room when every classified file said she shouldn't exist. As the others resumed their seats, she turned slightly away, watching the storm clouds roll in through the briefing room window. The base outside was alive with motion, rotors spinning, boots on asphalt, the sound of controlled chaos before a mission that could break men. She closed her eyes for a moment. The echo of a voice, not from this room, but from another life, drifted through her memory. You don't come back from that kind of night, Cade. She had come back, but not all of her. Someone cleared their throat. The admiral's voice cut through the silence again. You said the corridors shifted. What about our evac routes? She blinked, refocusing. You'll need to run extraction north by sea. If you use the southern ridge, the wind cross will eat your signal. He nodded. We'll need you on comms for that. She hesitated. You won't need me on comms, sir. He frowned. Why not? She met his gaze, steady and calm. Because I'll be flying it. The room froze again. The admiral studied her face. There was no doubt, no bravado, just certainty. You're volunteering. I'm not volunteering, she said. I'm already assigned, you just don't know it yet. He exhaled slowly, almost smiling at the absurdity of her confidence, but deep down, something told him she wasn't bluffing. The kind of composure she had didn't come from arrogance. It came from experience, from loss. Finally, he nodded. Fine, Night Fox, you're in. She turned to leave, but before stepping out, she paused, helmet under her arm, shadow crossing the threshold. Sir, she said softly, there's one more thing you should know. He raised a brow. What's that? She looked back over her shoulder, the light catching the edge of her scar. The last time I flew that corridor, I wasn't alone, but I was the only one who made it out. And with that, she walked out, leaving behind a room full of men, who suddenly understood that silence could carry more authority than rank, more weight than medals. Outside, the wind picked up warm desert air colliding with salt from the sea. The runway shimmered under the dying sun. Night Fox stood at the edge of the tarmac, staring at the hangar where her jet waited, repaired, repainted, but still scarred in the same places she was. She touched the metal gently, like greeting an old friend. Somewhere inside her, beneath the discipline and protocol, was a quiet truth. She didn't come here for orders or approval. She came because she couldn't leave a mission half buried in ghosts. And if she had to fly through hell again to set things right, then so be it. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. Something that still haunted her, a message lost in static, a voice that refused to die in the dark. And soon, they'd all find out why the name Night Fox was never supposed to exist. Why did the sound of the hangar lights always feel like a heartbeat? Sarah Cade stood beneath the skeletal frame of her aircraft, a stealth fighter stripped of glamour, patched and reassembled like a veteran who'd forgotten how to rest. The jet's matte skin still bore faint burn marks from the night she'd gone down. She traced one with her gloved hand, feeling the roughness beneath her fingertips. They painted over the scorch lines, but ghosts didn't fade with paint. Crewmen passed around her, tightening bolts, checking fuel lines, calling out numbers she'd memorized before most of them could spell aerodynamics. None of them dared to speak to her directly. They all knew who she was now, or rather, what she represented. The myth had a face again. "Cade," a voice called from behind her. She turned to see Commander Holt, her former wingman, or what was left of him. He'd taken shrapnel months ago. The limp in his walk was permanent. His eyes studied her like he was afraid she might vanish again. "Didn't think I'd see you in uniform again," he said quietly. "Neither did I," she replied. He leaned against a crate, arms folded. "So, you're really flying this one?" She nodded. "You sure that's a good idea?" She smirked faintly. "You ever known me to have good ideas?" He almost smiled, almost. "You know what I mean, that airspace, Cade, you don't owe them anything." Her hand tightened on the edge of the aircraft. "Maybe not them," she said, "but I owe someone." He watched her, waiting for her to explain. She didn't. The truth sat heavy in her chest, too heavy for words, the memory of a voice over comms, her co-pilot's laugh, the brief static before everything went white. Holt sighed. "The Admiral's not gonna like this." "He already does." "Still the same fox," he muttered, shaking his head. "Always flying into storms just to see if you can." She looked at him, eyes steady. "You ever think the storm's the only place left that feels real?" He didn't answer. The wind outside picked up, carrying dust and jet fumes across the tarmac. Somewhere in the distance, a helicopter lifted off, blades cutting the dawn into pieces. The base was coming alive, gearing up for Operation Falcon Shield, a rescue mission that could go wrong in 100 different ways. She'd already memorized everyone. The briefing room smelled of stale coffee and doubt. The SEAL team was gearing up. Commander Briggs, the field lead, ran them through insertion timing. Extraction point Charlie by 4:37. Air cover expected to maintain visual only. No deep support unless command says otherwise. Sarah sat near the back, silent, arms folded. She wasn't part of the SEAL unit, not officially, but she was the one flying their sky. Briggs caught her eye. "You really think the wind corridor's that bad?" "I don't think," she said. "I know." He nodded, uneasy. "Heard you pulled off some miracle runs last year, flying solo over a blackout zone." She didn't reply. He smirked faintly. "We got our own stories too, but something tells me yours come with more fire." She looked up at him, expression unreadable. "Fire doesn't care whose story it burns." The room went quiet again. Briggs looked away. The Admiral stepped in, cutting the tension. "We're locked and loaded, people. The diplomat's last signal was picked up 12 hours ago. No radio since. We move fast, low, and silent." His gaze lingered on Cade. "Lieutenant Commander, you'll have remote authorization over your drone wing. We've updated the link protocols." Her jaw tensed. "With respect, sir, I won't be using remote." He frowned. "You're flying manually." "Yes, sir." "That's not standard procedure anymore." "Neither am I." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Cade, this isn't about proving something." Her tone softened just barely. "It's not. It's about getting them home." There was a pause, the kind that carried meaning no one wanted to unpack. Finally, he nodded. "Fine. Your flight, your call. Just don't make me explain another ghost report." Her lips curved, almost a smile. "No promises." Later that night, Sarah sat alone in her quarters, a temporary metal box tucked behind the hangar, walls thin enough for the desert wind to whisper through. Her flight helmet sat on the desk in front of her. She stared at it like it might answer a question she hadn't dared to ask. The surface was scratched, faintly dented near the top. She remembered that hit, the missile fragment that clipped the wing, the violent roll that followed, the sound of her co-pilot screaming her name through static, "Sarah, eject. Eject." Then nothing. Just black water and silence. She clawed her way back from the sea, half dead, half blind, her oxygen mask filled with salt. Found by a patrol boat days later, delirious, unresponsive. Classified for recovery, redacted in reports. They'd written her off before she could even wake up. Now every time she touched that helmet, she still felt the pulse of that night, not fear, not guilt, something deeper. She reached into the small compartment beside her bed and pulled out a folded photo, 3 pilots standing beside their aircraft, grinning like they'd never die. One of them was her. The others were gone. She traced their faces with her thumb, whispering softly, "I'm not done yet." Outside, a low rumble of thunder rolled across the horizon, rare for this part of the desert. She looked up, almost smiling at the irony. "Storm's coming," she murmured. 400 hours. The hangar was lit like a cathedral, floodlights glowing against the matte black of the aircraft, crewmen moving like quiet worshippers. Engines roared to life one by one. Sarah climbed into the cockpit. Every movement was muscle memory, every click and pull as familiar as breathing. The canopy sealed above her, shutting out the chaos below. In here, there was only her, the machine, and the sky waiting to be torn open. Her comm crackled. "Command to Night Fox, confirm flight readiness." She pressed the switch. "Night Fox, ready for launch." The Admiral's voice followed, lower, more careful than before. "Bring them home, Lieutenant." She didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked to the small insignia scratched into the console, 3 initials etched by hand long ago. LJR. Her voice, when it came, was steady. "Copy that." She throttled forward. The engine screamed, then steadied into a low, hungry growl. The jet rolled out into the open, runway lights stretching before her like veins of fire. Then takeoff. The ground fell away. The desert turned into a blur of gold and shadow beneath her. The sky swallowed her whole. She climbed higher, breaking through the first layer of cloud, where everything went quiet except the hum of power. Night Fox was back in her element, but not at peace. Not yet. At 4:17 hours, her radar pinged. The SEAL transport was airborne, approaching Sector 17. Falcon 1, Night Fox, you're clear for corridor entry, crosswind stable. Copy that, Night Fox, Briggs's voice replied. Good to have eyes on us again. Eyes and wings, she said. For the next 15 minutes, she guided them through the labyrinth of air currents, precision turns, timed dives, silent ascents through radar shadows. Her hands moved instinctively, adjusting trim, managing heat signature. Every second, her mind replayed that last mission, the same air currents, the same timing but different outcome. Then came the voice in her earpiece. Not Briggs, not command, a whisper. Static first, then faintly, Sarah. Her blood went cold. She froze, scanning the channels. Nothing, no signal source. It wasn't possible. The voice was familiar, painfully familiar. LJ, she breathed almost to herself. Silence. She shook her head, focusing on instruments again. Probably an echo, an old recording bleeding through comm interference. Nothing more. But the ache in her chest said otherwise. Command, we're approaching drop point, Briggs reported. Confirmed, Sarah answered. You're green 5 minutes. As the SEALs prepped for insertion, Sarah's sensors picked up movement, faint, ghost-like pings on the outer edge of radar. Missile signatures, 3 of them. She flipped her comm. Command, confirm hostile presence near Sector 19. The Admiral's voice came through tense. "We're not reading anything on our end." "That's because you're not looking in the right place." She dove hard. Her jet sliced through the night, alarms flickering red. She saw them now, camouflaged SAM emplacements hidden under sand nets, exactly where she'd predicted. "Falcon 1, evasive pattern Delta," she snapped. "Missile locks inbound." "Copy that." The first missile streaked upward, cutting through the dark. She banked right, the G-force slamming into her ribs. Sweat rolled down her neck, breath short but steady. "Fox 2, she fired. Countermeasure flares exploded behind her like dying stars. One missile veered off, two didn't. The sky lit up. Her jet rocked violently as one blast detonated too close. Warning lights screamed. But she didn't falter, didn't even curse. Just stabilized, recalibrated, and dived again. Her voice over comms was calm, clinical. "Targets confirmed, neutralized. Sector clear. Proceed with drop." The SEALs confirmed. "Copy that, we're moving." The Admiral's voice cut back in. "Night Fox, report damage." She looked at the console, two systems flashing red. Fuel down 6%. Right stabilizer compromised. "Minor," she said. "Define minor." "Still flying." He exhaled on the other end. "You're insane." She smiled faintly. "You say that like it's new." As the team disappeared below the horizon, she leveled out, heart still pounding from the adrenaline. And then again the static. Only this time clearer. "Sarah, it's cold up here." Her hand trembled on the control stick. That voice, she knew it too well. L.J. Rains, her co-pilot, her brother in all but blood, the one who didn't make it out. She looked out into the darkness, where the clouds glowed faintly from the fire below. "Not now," she whispered, eyes wet. "Not tonight." But deep inside, she knew, this mission wasn't just about saving the diplomat. It was about facing the ghost she'd left in the sky. Why did the desert sound like the ocean at night? Down below, the dunes rolled like frozen waves under the moonlight. The SEAL transport skimmed the surface, silent, black against black. Commander Briggs watched the terrain through night vision goggles, every muscle locked tight. Above them, a faint silhouette moved, her fighter, a dark wing against the stars. "Falcon 1 to Night Fox," Briggs whispered into his comm. "Visual confirmed. We're at 2 clicks from insertion." "Copy that," Sarah's voice came through, steady, low, the kind of calm that only came from people who had already survived the worst. She watched their progress from 30,000 feet, fingers brushing across the console like she was reading Braille. Every movement below was hers to guard. Every signal in the air, hers to interpret. The diplomat they were retrieving, a state liaison named Dr. Morgan Hale, had been taken by insurgents on the border, held in an abandoned radar complex. Intel called it a containment site. Cade knew that was a lie. She'd seen those kinds of facilities before. They weren't built to contain. They were built to erase. The SEALs dropped silently, parachutes blooming like black petals in the night. She tracked them on thermal until they hit ground. Then she cut thrusters, easing her bird into a glide-patterned silent watch above their storm. From here, everything felt almost peaceful. But peace, she knew, was usually the pause before something broke. Briggs signaled his men forward. Boots sank into fine sand, rifles raised, hearts drumming to the rhythm of adrenaline and uncertainty. "Falcon 1 moving. Night Fox, we're good." "Copy, Falcon. You have a 3-minute window before wind shift. Make it count." She listened to the distant echoes of their footsteps over the comm feed, the crunch of sand, the click of safeties. Every sound reminded her of a different mission, a different night. Her co-pilot's voice came again, clearer this time, threading through the static like a whisper only she could hear. "You shouldn't be here, Sarah." Her throat tightened. "Don't do this," she murmured to the empty cockpit. Static crackled back, then silence. She shut her eyes, pressing her thumb against the comm panel until her nail turned white. It wasn't real. Couldn't be. She'd watched him disappear into the fire. She, buried that night, layer by layer under reports, debriefs, therapy, orders. And yet here it was, his voice, cutting through encrypted Navy bandwidths like a ghost that refused to die. Why now? Why tonight? Night Fox, Briggs's voice snapped her back. We've got visual on the target structure. She straightened. Status. 2 tangos on perimeter. No movement inside main hall. Thermal shows 8 inside, she countered, checking her readout. 3 near the east wing. Watch your corners. He didn't ask how she knew, he just nodded into the dark. Copy that. The radar complex loomed like a dead giant, a maze of steel bones half buried in sand. The air shimmered with heat even at night. Briggs's team moved in, slow and surgical. Suppressed shots cracked the silence. One guard down, then another. Sarah's eyes flicked between monitors, every second stretched, every heartbeat aligned with their movement. Then a flash, a signal spike. Briggs, you've got motion on your 6, she snapped. He spun, fired twice. A body fell. Appreciate the eyes, Night Fox. Stay sharp, that wasn't all of them. She zoomed out her thermal scope and froze. A new signal was moving in fast from the west. Multiple vehicles. No ID tags. Command, this is Night Fox, she called. We've got inbound hostiles. 11 trucks, full armament, ETA 3 minutes. The Admiral's voice came through, tense. SEAL teams too deep for extraction. You'll have to hold them off. Sarah's pulse steadied. Her voice turned into steel. Understood. She powered the jet, engines roaring to life in the quiet sky. Briggs's voice came back through comms, calm but urgent. Fox, if you're thinking of playing hero, don't. I'm not thinking, she said. I'm remembering. And she banked hard east. The first convoy came into view below, headlights flickering over the dunes, engines howling. 11 trucks, heavy machine guns, RPGs. Sarah aligned her crosshairs. She could almost hear her old instructor's voice. Don't think about the target. Think about what happens if you miss. She fired. The first missile hit the lead truck. Fire bloomed like sunrise across the sand. The rest scattered, panicked. She dove again, the jet slicing through smoke. Every motion was instinct. No hesitation, no wasted time, just rhythm. Then the console flickered. Static surged again. They died because of you, Sarah. Her breath caught. The ghost voice again, this time colder, more accusing. Not now, she whispered, adjusting pitch. Not here. You left me there. The memory hit her like turbulence, flames in the cockpit. His scream, the blinding light, the sound of water swallowing everything. She almost lost grip of the control stick. The jet veered, alarms blaring. Her fingers dug into the metal. Not again, she hissed. She pulled hard, regaining control just in time to release another missile. The second convoy erupted in flames. Below, Briggs's voice shouted through the chaos. We're inside, target secured. She barely heard him. Her pulse pounded in her ears. The comm still hissed, faint but deliberate. You can't save them all, Fox. Her eyes burned. Maybe not, she whispered, but I can save these. Inside the complex, Briggs's team breached the inner hall. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. At the far end, they found Hale, the diplomat, tied to a chair, bruised but breathing. Falcon to Night Fox, package in hand, were heading to exfil. Sarah steadied her breathing, voice soft again. Copy, Falcon. You've got 4 minutes before the second wave arrives. Stay in the shadows. Got it. She switched frequencies. Command, evac point still green. Negative, the Admiral replied. Sandstorm approaching from the south. You'll have to redirect them north. North route takes them straight through the ridge fire zone. We don't have a choice. Sarah clenched her jaw. Then I'll make a choice. The desert erupted again, tracer fire streaking through the night. The insurgents regrouped, opening fire into the sky. She could feel the vibration of rounds pinging off her hull. The aircraft shook, metal screaming under pressure. Warning lights flashed red across her console. Damage reports scrolled faster than she could read. "Night Fox status," the Admiral barked. She smiled bitterly, still flying. Damn it, Cade, break off. But she didn't. Below, she could see the SEALs moving, tiny silhouettes carrying the diplomat between them, sand whipping their faces. If she pulled out now, they'd never make it. She descended lower, almost scraping the ridge line. Her targeting system flickered, then stabilized. 3 trucks were closing in on the SEALs. She whispered to herself, "Not this time." She fired. Explosions rippled across the horizon, lighting up the sand like lightning trapped in earth. The SEALs ducked and kept moving. "Falcon 1 to Night Fox," Briggs shouted over the roar. "That was too close." "Close is the only way it works," she replied, smiling despite herself. Then another voice. But not through comms, inside her helmet. Faint, almost a breath, "Pull up, Sarah." Her heart stopped. That was exactly what he'd said the night they went down. Same tone, same calm before death. Her fingers hovered over the throttle. "Sarah, do you read me?" the Admiral called again. She blinked hard, forcing herself to breathe. "Copy." Her jet trembled, a warning tone screamed. She was flying too low, too fast. For one brief moment, the world blurred: fire, sand, ghosts, and sky. Then she pulled hard. The aircraft roared upward, climbing out of the death zone. Her body pressed into the seat, vision tunneling from the G-force. When she leveled out, the desert stretched below her: smoke, fire, silence. She'd done it. The SEALs were alive. The target was secure. But the voice in her head wasn't done. "You can't keep running from the crash." She looked out the canopy, eyes wet, lips trembling with a mix of rage and grief. "I'm not running," she whispered. "I'm finishing it." By the time the SEALs reached the extraction point, dawn was bleeding into the horizon. The sandstorm had turned the light copper, painting the wreckage in muted gold. Sarah hovered above them, keeping her distance. The jet was shaking, systems fried, warning lights blinking like dying stars. "Command package extracted," Briggs reported. "All units safe." "Confirmed," the Admiral replied. "Get back to base." Sarah smiled faintly at the words, "all units safe." For once, the mission was clean. But she didn't turn home. Instead, she glanced at her radar again, at a blinking dot in the corner. Sector 19, the same spot she'd gone down before. The same signal that shouldn't exist. LJR. Still transmitting, still alive according to her instruments. It couldn't be. Could it? Her breath came shallow. The world seemed to tilt. "Night Fox, return to base," the Admiral ordered. She didn't respond. "Cade, that's an order." She flicked her comm off. The hum of the jet was the only sound left. Then she whispered to herself, voice breaking between disbelief and determination. "I left you once, not again." And she turned toward the signal. Why did the dead still whisper over static? The desert below stretched like an endless wound, endless, burning, and quiet. Sarah Cade's fighter roared low over it, cutting through dawn haze, every vibration trembling through her bones. Her comm was silent now. She turned it off 10 minutes ago. The Admiral would be furious, command would be scrambling, but she didn't care. For the first time in months, the noise of orders had stopped. Only one signal remained. That single blinking dot on her radar. Sector 19. The crash zone. Her crash zone. She stared at the coordinates, her jaw locked tight. Every instinct told her to turn back. Every logical thought screamed, "This is madness." But logic had nothing to do with ghosts. and this one had haunted her long enough. The jet's engine strained as she pushed deeper into restricted airspace. The terrain below grew jagged, black rock formations cutting through sand like broken teeth. Somewhere down there lay the wreckage of her old aircraft, buried under dunes and secrets. Her heartbeat synced with the faint beeping of the locator signal. Beep, beep, beep. Then suddenly static. She frowned, tapping the console. The radar flickered, then came alive again, but the signal moved. Not stationary, moving. That was impossible. The transponder from her old jet should have been dead, buried, burned out. Yet it was drifting slow but deliberate. Like something or someone was carrying it. Back at the base, the command room erupted in chaos. Night Fox's transponder is moving east, a technician shouted. She's off mission grid. The admiral slammed his fist against the table. Get her back on comms. Sir, she cut her link. He cursed under his breath, staring at the map. Cade's jet was heading directly toward the restricted coordinates, the same zone intelligence had marked as unrecoverable. She's going back, murmured Commander Holt, stepping into the room. The admiral turned sharply. You knew she'd do this. Holt hesitated. I knew she couldn't leave it alone. Then you know what's out there. He nodded grimly. The graveyard. The admiral's voice dropped, and maybe something worse. The closer Sarah flew, the darker the air seemed to get. Not literally, but heavy, thick, as if the atmosphere itself carried memory. She slowed altitude, switching to low-visibility radar. The sun was climbing, but the light felt muted, almost afraid to touch this place. Then she saw it. Her wreck, half buried under sand and twisted metal, like a fossil of failure. The markings on the wing, faint but visible, Night Fox 7. For a moment her breath stopped. The image she tried to bury came flooding back, the fire, the impact, the crushing silence that followed. She remembered clawing her way out of the cockpit, the world spinning, her co-pilot's voice screaming through static, Sarah, eject. And then nothing but the sea swallowing light. But the wreck wasn't in the sea anymore. How had it ended up here? She circled lower. Instruments flickered again, radiation spikes, interference. The air shimmered like heat mirage. Something wasn't right. She switched to thermal. That's when she saw it, a figure moving near the wreck, human-shaped, alive. The signal source. Her pulse quickened. No, she whispered, it can't be. She hovered above, lowering altitude. The figure stood still now, head tilted upward as if it knew she was watching. For a second, the wind carried through the mic, and a voice crackled over her dead calm. Took you long enough, Fox. Her blood went cold. LJ. No answer, just the faint hum of wind over static. She set the fighter to autopilot hover, disengaged harness, and reached for her sidearm. Every movement felt unreal, like she was walking into a dream she'd had too many times. When her boots hit the sand, the heat slammed into her. She could barely hear the hum of her engines over the blood pounding in her ears. The wreck loomed ahead, black, twisted, half devoured by time. And there, near the shattered cockpit, stood a man. Same height, same stance. The silhouette was burned into her memory. LJ, she whispered again. He didn't move, didn't turn, just stood there, half in shadow, half in sunlight. Her throat tightened. If this is some kind of trick, I swear. Then he turned. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. It was him, or what was left of him. The flight suit was scorched, torn, his face pale beneath a layer of dust and oil, his eyes the same deep gray she remembered, but wrong somehow, empty, detached. You left me, he said softly. She took a step back, shaking her head. No, I tried to. You didn't come back. LJ, you were gone, I called. You heard me, you just didn't listen. Her hands trembled. You're not real, she whispered. You can't be real. He tilted his head. Then why do I know your voice better than mine? Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. This isn't happening. He stepped closer. His boots didn't leave prints. His shadow didn't change. You flew out, Sarah. You lived, but you left the rest of us down there. She stumbled back, chest tight. I tried to pull you. You didn't try hard enough. The sound of metal groaning filled the air. The wreck behind him shifted, sand collapsing inward. Sparks flickered from inside the old fuselage, faint blue light glowing like a heartbeat. Then the wind changed, sudden and violent. Her headset crackled back to life. Night Fox, respond. Cade, if you hear this, turn around, the Admiral's voice shouted. But it was fading fast, drowned by static. LJ smiled faintly. You hear them, don't you? Still trying to control what they don't understand. Shut up, she muttered, pressing a hand to her ear. Command, I'm. Static again. Then LJ's voice, closer now. They'll never understand what happened that night. Only we do. Her breath came shallow. What happened? You still don't remember. I remember everything, she shouted. He smiled sadly. No, you don't. Then silence. The desert held its breath. Sarah's vision blurred. The heat shimmered harder. And suddenly she was back there. Inside the cockpit, the alarms blaring, LJ shouting, fire spreading across the dash. Eject, he screamed again. I can't leave you, she shouted back. You have to. Then a flash, white, blinding. And then water, cold, crushing silence. Except this time she saw something new, a second explosion, smaller, delayed. Not an accident, a detonation. She gasped, the memory slamming into her. Someone hit us, she whispered. Someone from inside. The ghost, or whatever he was, didn't answer. He just looked at her, eyes heavy with something almost like pity. Now you remember. Her knees gave out. She fell to the sand, breath shaking. That mission wasn't an accident, she whispered. It was a setup. LJ's voice softened. And they buried it, just like they buried me. She looked up at him. Why show me this now? Because they're doing it again, he said quietly. Falcon's shield wasn't a rescue. It was a distraction. What are you talking about? They're moving something deep in this sector. A payload. It's what took us down. Sarah's stomach turned cold. No. You felt it, didn't you? He said. The interference, the signal bleed. It's not weather, it's power, the kind they can't control. Her mind raced. The Admiral, the intel brief, the missing satellite updates. It all made sense now. Why tell me, she whispered. LJ stepped closer, fatting slightly in the heat shimmer. Because I can't leave until someone finishes it. Finishes what? He met her eyes, and for the first time there was warmth there. The truth. Then the wind howled again, sand swirling, blinding. She covered her face, coughing. When it cleared, he was gone. Only the wreck remained, and a small metal drive embedded in the sand where he'd stood. She picked it up slowly. Its surface glowed faintly, Navy encryption pattern. Her name engraved on it. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cade. Mission Blackbird Recovery. Her hands trembled. Oh my God. The horizon shimmered, storm clouds forming fast. Her jet's warning lights flashed red. Command was still trying to reach her, voices faint through static. But she didn't answer. Not yet. She looked at the drive one more time, then at the wreck, the ghost of her past, the truth of her survival. She'd been saved for a reason. And now she knew what it was. She climbed back into her fighter, sealing the canopy. The engine screamed to life, sand swirling into chaos around her. The Admiral's voice finally broke through, half static, half fury. Night Fox, report. Where the hell have you been? She took a long breath, eyes fixed on the horizon. Retrieving what you lost, sir, she said quietly, and what you tried to forget. Then she pushed the throttle forward. The jet rose into the storm, cutting through lightning like a blade. Behind her, the wreck disappeared under dust once more. Ahead, secrets waiting to burn. Why did the truth always sound like betrayal when spoken aloud? The storm followed her home. Sarah Cade's fighter cut through sheets of sand and lightning, a streak of defiance tearing across the blood-orange sky. Every warning light in the cockpit flashed red. Every system screamed at her to stop, but she didn't. Not until the base appeared, a scattering of lights on the horizon, growing larger through the storm's haze. She landed hard. The tarmac shook under her wheels, heat shimmering around the fuselage. When the canopy opened, the wind ripped through like it wanted to pull her back into the desert. She didn't let it. 2 MPs rushed toward her, shouting something she couldn't hear over the roar of the engines. She unbuckled, climbed down, and dropped to the ground, helmet still on, stride unbroken. Commander Holt was waiting near the hangar, his expression a storm of its own. "What the hell were you thinking, Cade?" he barked, his voice barely audible over the wind. She kept walking, ignoring him. "Sarah." That stopped her. She turned, eyes calm but burning underneath. "Don't use my name when you're yelling at me, Commander." He blinked, thrown off for half a second. Then his tone dropped. "You broke every order in the book." "I know. You went dark for an hour." "I know. You could have been shot down, you." "I found it." He froze. "Found what?" She held up the small metal drive, the faint blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. "The truth," she said quietly. Holt's face hardened. "That's classified." "So was I," she shot back. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind howled through the open hangar, carrying the smell of burning oil and ozone. Finally, Holt exhaled, stepping closer. "Where did you get that?" "From the crash site." "That area was sealed. You shouldn't have." "I know where it was," she interrupted. "I remember everything now." He stared at her, jaw tightening. "Sarah, listen to me. If you bring that thing inside the command net, you'll start something you can't stop. Then help me stop it before someone else buries it." He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something behind her eyes that hadn't been there before. Resolve, and grief so deep it had turned into clarity. Finally he sighed. "Fine, but you show me first." They walked in silence through the back corridors of the operations wing, the place the brass didn't want pilots to wander. Sarah's boots left faint tracks in the sand coating the floor. The storm outside rattled the metal walls like gunfire. They slipped into a dark briefing room. Holt locked the door and pulled up a portable decrypt terminal. "Give me the drive," he said. She hesitated. "You sure about this?" He met her gaze. "No, but I'm already in it now." She placed it in his hand. The terminal hummed to life, blue light flickering across their faces. Encrypted files spilled across the screen, classified mission logs, data transmissions, unlisted drone IDs. One file blinked in red. Blackbird Recovery Delta. Holt clicked it open. The footage was grainy, timestamped from her last mission. Sarah watched in silence as the video unfolded: cockpit feed, heat signatures, radar overlays. It showed the moment of the explosion, the chaos, her desperate attempts to stabilize the craft. Then a flicker. Not an external missile. An internal detonation. Triggered remotely. Her hands clenched into fists. "They killed us," she whispered. Holt's face went pale. "Jesus." The video zoomed in: command authorization code embedded in the detonation signal. Navy encryption. From SEAL Command itself. "That's..." Holt swallowed. "That's impossible." Sarah shook her head. "That's betrayal." She leaned closer, scanning the coordinates attached to the file. Her stomach dropped. Sector 19, the same area she'd just flown over. "What were they testing out there?" she muttered. Holt scrolled further. More files appeared, labeled Project MORNINGSTAR, Seismic AI Mapping, and one simply titled Payload. He clicked the last one. Lines of code filled the screen, unreadable to most, but she recognized parts of it. Signal modulation, drone interface cross-links, and a word she hadn't seen since her early Black Ops training, adaptive cognitive weaponry. Her voice trembled. They were testing autonomous targeting AI in live conditions. We were the field test. Holt rubbed his temples, and the crash report blamed a weather anomaly. They lied, she said flatly. He looked up, and that voice you heard, out there in the desert. She hesitated. I thought it was LJ, my co-pilot. It was. I don't know, she whispered. But whatever's left of him, it's tied to this. His transponder was transmitting data. It was part of the AI's test cycle. Holt stared at her, realization dawning like a wound opening. They used his brain data, the neural sync from the pilot interface. To train the system, she finished quietly. He didn't die, not all of him. The room went silent. Only the hum of the terminal filled the air. Sarah's eyes stayed on the screen, on the ghost of a file labeled LJRAINES/Cognitive Signature Archive. He'd been turned into code. A weapon. Her weapon. The door banged open without warning. The Admiral stepped in, flanked by two armed MPs. Stand down, both of you, he said, voice like gravel. Holt stood quickly. Sir. Save it. The Admiral's eyes locked onto the screen. I told you that area was sealed for a reason. Sarah didn't move. A reason you buried. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. You have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done. I've seen what you hid. His gaze hardened. You think this is about you, about your little redemption flight. Her jaw clenched. It's about them, about every pilot you turned into a ghost for your project. You don't understand, he snapped. Morningstar wasn't just about drones. It was about survival. The next war won't be fought by soldiers. It'll be fought by algorithms. We were building the only thing that could keep up. By killing your own people. By sacrificing a few to save thousands, he said coldly. Your partner knew the risk, so did you. Her voice dropped to a whisper. We didn't sign up to be erased. Holt stepped forward, fists clenched. Sir, this goes against every. The Admiral turned to him. That's an order, Commander. You'll delete that data now. Holt didn't move. Sarah's hand hovered near her sidearm. Her eyes were steady, voice soft but sharp as glass. You delete this and it happens again, somewhere else, to someone else. The Admiral stared at her, unreadable. You think you can expose this? You'd bring the Navy to its knees. Maybe it's time it learned to kneel, she said. The room went still. Then softly, the Admiral spoke. You were always too sentimental to see the big picture. And you were always too scared to look at the small one, she replied. He nodded slowly, almost like he respected her for saying it. Then he turned to the MPs. Take them both into custody. The soldiers stepped forward. Holt glanced at Sarah. We can't fight them here. Her voice was quiet, certain. We don't have to. She reached over and yanked the data drive from the terminal. Alarms blared immediately. System breach detected. Red lights filled the room. Cade, the Admiral shouted. But she was already moving. She shoved the drive into her flight jacket and sprinted through the side door. Holt followed, gunfire echoing behind them. They burst into the hangar, floodlights slicing through the smoke. The storm outside had worsened, sand hammering the walls like rain. Sarah, they'll shoot us down before we hit the runway, Holt yelled. Then we don't use the runway. She ran for the maintenance bay, climbing up the nearest drone interceptor, smaller than her jet but fast enough to outrun anything short of a missile. Holt jumped into the back seat. You realize this is insanity, right? She sealed the canopy. You keep saying that like it's new. Bullets pinged off the hull. She throttled up. The engine screamed, shaking the hangar to its frame. The MPs dove for cover as the aircraft blasted through the side doors, metal and sand flying in every direction. The sky swallowed them. As they climbed into the storm, the comm came alive again, the Admiral's voice, furious and desperate. "Cade, don't do this. You have no idea what you're carrying." Her voice came back calm, resolute. "That's where you're wrong, sir. I know exactly what I'm carrying. You'll doom us all." "No," she said, eyes narrowing as lightning flashed ahead. "I'll remind you what it means to be human." The line went dead. Holt glanced at her, face pale in the flickering light. "What's the plan?" She looked at the drive in her hand, glowing faintly through the glass. "There's a Navy relay satellite over Sector 8. If I can get close enough, I can broadcast the entire archive before they shut it down. They'll trace you instantly." "I'm counting on it." He frowned, and then what? She gave a small, weary smile. "Then we see if ghosts can still fly." Outside, lightning ripped through the sky, painting her cockpit in blinding flashes. The storm wasn't just weather anymore. It felt alive, pulsing, almost aware. And somewhere in that static, she heard it again. "Sarah, you're close." Her grip tightened on the controls. "LJ. Finish it." The voice faded, carried away by thunder. She exhaled slowly, the ache in her chest replaced by something colder, purpose. For the first time since that night over the Arabian Sea, Sarah Cade knew exactly what she was fighting for. Not revenge, not redemption, but truth. And sometimes, the only way to honor the dead was to make sure the living couldn't forget. Why did the sky always look most beautiful when it was trying to kill you? The storm was alive, not just roaring wind or flashes of white fire, but alive, conscious almost. Sarah Cade's fighter sliced through it, a blade against chaos. Lightning danced across her wings, crackling blue against the matte black metal. The clouds around her were thick, writhing, an ocean of smoke and fury. She flew blind, trusting instinct more than instruments. Holt gripped the seat behind her, trying to keep his voice level. "You realize they're probably locking onto us right now." "I'm counting on it," she said. He laughed bitterly. "I used to think you said things like that just to scare people. Turns out I meant every word." He leaned forward. "You sure this data's worth dying for?" Her eyes stayed fixed on the storm ahead. "It's not about dying for it. It's about living after it." She pushed the throttle forward. The fighter howled, climbing higher through the clouds. Static wrapped around them like whispers. "Altitude 41,000, Holt muttered, scanning the gauges. "We can't go much higher." "We'll have to," she said. "The relay satellite, just above the upper troposphere. 1-minute window before they cut the signal." He looked at her reflection in the glass, steady, unreadable, but her jaw was tight. "Sarah," he said quietly, "what if they shoot us down before we get there?" She didn't look at him. "Then make sure it's worth the shot." Back at the command center, alarms screamed. "Target is climbing beyond regulation altitude," a tech shouted. "We have breach in restricted airspace." The Admiral stood over the console, jaw like stone. "Deploy interceptors. I want that aircraft grounded now." "Sir, that's Night Fox." "I'm aware." Commander Briggs, still fresh from the rescue op, stormed into the room. "Sir, with respect, she's one of us. What the hell are you doing?" The Admiral didn't look up. "Containment protocol. She's carrying compromised intel." "She's carrying proof," Briggs snapped. "If she's right about that AI project." "This isn't your concern, Commander." "The hell it is. She saved my men." The Admiral finally turned, his tone quiet but dangerous. "And now she's about to burn every mission we've ever fought for." Briggs stared at him, realization settling in. You knew what they did." The Admiral didn't deny it. Outside, 3 interceptors lifted off into the storm, their afterburners painting the clouds orange. Sarah's radar lit up, 3 signatures fast, triangular formation. "Got company," Holt said. "They're closing in." "Let them." "Sarah, I need them in range before I start the upload." "Why?" "Because they're my relay." He blinked. "What?" "Their radar links are tied into the Navy's satellite net. If I sync to their comm bands, I can piggyback the transmission straight through their own encryption." Holt exhaled, half laughing in disbelief. "You're insane." "Probably." Static crackled over the comm. "Night Fox, this is Interceptor Lead. You are ordered to descend immediately and surrender control." Sarah's tone was calm, almost casual. "Copy that, Lead." "Confirm descent." "Negative." "Say again." She smiled faintly. "You heard me." "Night Fox, this isn't a request." She flicked the comm off. "See, that's why I don't do meetings." Holt chuckled under his breath, despite the tension. The radar beeps quickened. They were closing fast, weapons hot. "Almost there," she murmured. Lightning illuminated the storm, 3 jets cutting through the cloud wall like arrows. The first missile streaked toward her, slicing the dark. "Missile inbound," Holt shouted. Sarah rolled hard, the fighter twisting through turbulence. The missile grazed her wing, exploding behind them in a wave of blue fire. The cockpit shook violently, warning lights flared red. "Damage report," she barked. "Stabilizers fried, heat shields failing. We can't take another hit like that." "We won't." She dove into the storm, lightning crackling inches from the glass. The interceptors followed, chasing her through chaos. Holt glanced at the console. "Upload window opens in 30 seconds. "Good. Good." She grinned, wild focused, perfect timing. Inside the storm, there was no horizon, only light and darkness colliding. Sarah locked the data drive into the system port, the cockpit filling with a soft blue glow. The files began to decrypt. Code streamed across the glass. "Signal uplink active," the system announced. "Connection unstable." She adjusted frequency. The interceptors, comm channels blinked on her radar. "Come on, come on." Then connection. She'd done it. "Signal bridge complete," the system confirmed. She exhaled, relief flickering across her face. "Uploading," she whispered. Holt's eyes widened. "You're using their comms as the pipeline." "Exactly. They can't stop it without shooting themselves out of the sky." "Clever," he muttered. "Desperate," she corrected. Back at command, chaos erupted. "Sir, she's hijacked the interceptor network." The Admiral's expression turned deadly calm. "Then sever the entire link. That'll crash the entire fleet's uplink." "Do it." "Sir." "Now." The tech hesitated, hands trembling over the keyboard. Briggs slammed a hand on the console. "You'll ground every pilot in the region. They'll fall out of the sky." The Admiral's jaw tightened. "Collateral." Briggs stared at him, horror in his eyes. "You've lost it." He turned toward the door. "Commander, stand down," the Admiral shouted. But Briggs didn't stop. Above the storm, Sarah's console flashed a warning. "Link interference detected." "They're cutting the network," Holt said. "Then we do this the hard way." "How hard are we talking?" She looked at him, calm but fierce. "Ever flown through lightning?" His eyes widened. "You can't be serious." She gripped the stick. "Hold on." The fighter plunged straight into the brightest part of the storm. Lightning arced across the canopy, blinding. The noise was deafening, pure chaos, a cathedral of thunder. The systems went haywire, alarms, static, every sensor screaming. Holt shouted something she couldn't hear. She focused only on the numbers flickering across the glass, upload progress climbing. 42%, 58%. 73%. Then impact. A missile clipped their tail. The cockpit exploded in sparks. Sarah, Holt yelled. "I've got it," she gritted her teeth, wrestling the controls. The jet spun, flames trailing behind. "Upload at 89%, the system warned. "Connection critical." Another missile lock. "Too close." She fired countermeasures, flares cutting through rain like comets. The missile veered, detonating nearby. The shockwave threw them sideways. Holt slammed into his seat. "We're not gonna make it." "Yes," she hissed, voice raw, "we are." And then silence. No alarms, no wind. Just stillness. They'd broken through the top of the storm. Above them the world opened, endless sky, calm, golden light filtering through thin clouds. Sarah stared for a second, breath caught in her throat. Holt whispered, "We're alive." "For now," she said. "Upload status. 97%. "Come on." The system beeped. "Connection complete. Upload successful." Sarah exhaled, long, trembling, half relief, half disbelief. "It's done." "Are you sure?" "Even if they shut everything down now, it's already in the satellite's buffer. The truth's out there." Holt laughed weakly. "So what now?" "Now," she said quietly, "now they come for us." Below, the Admiral's face turned ghost-white as the monitors filled with cascading data. "She did it," the technician whispered. "The entire Morningstar archive, it's gone public across relay bands. It's everywhere." The Admiral's voice cracked with fury. "Shut it down." "We can't, it's global." He stared at the screen, years of secrets unraveling line by line. Then softly, "God help us all." Briggs appeared in the doorway, rain dripping from his uniform. "No, Admiral, God help you." Back above the clouds, Sarah's fighter was trailing smoke, systems failing. The damage from the missile had caught up. The left wing was half gone, fuel leaking fast. Holt looked at the gauges, then at her. "We're not making it back, are we?" She didn't answer. He swallowed hard. "We could eject." She smiled faintly. "You could." He frowned. "Don't start that." She looked ahead, the storm clearing, sunlight spilling across the horizon. "LJ used to say the sky always takes back what it loves most," she murmured. Maybe he was right. "Sarah, don't." Her hand rested on the throttle. "You've got a family, Holt. Don't let them bury you too." He grabbed her arm. "I'm not leaving you." She turned, eyes glassy but fierce. "Then live for me." She pulled the eject lever for his seat. He barely had time to shout before the canopy blew open, and he was gone, parachute ripping through the light. Alone again. The fighter's alarms wailed. Fire crawled up the console. The horizon blurred between sky and sea. She whispered to herself, "Looks like it's just us again, partner." Static filled her helmet. "You did good, Fox." Her lips trembled. "You're still here." "Always was." "Where do we go now?" A pause, then home. The light grew brighter, too bright. She smiled, eyes closing, the corner of her mouth lifting in quiet peace. "Yeah," she whispered, "home." The jet vanished into the sun, leaving nothing but silence and a trail of truth in its wake. But even as the wreckage fell through the clouds, the data she'd unleashed was already spreading across the world, servers lighting up with her story, her flight logs, her voice. Somewhere, someone would hear it. And somewhere, someone would whisper her name. Night Fox. Not a ghost. Not a myth. But a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing a soldier can do is refuse to stay silent. Why does the world only start listening after the brave are gone? The ocean was quiet that morning. Waves rolled against the hull of the rescue vessel, gentle and indifferent, as if they hadn't just swallowed the sky hours before. The storm had passed, leaving behind the scent of salt, oil, and something heavier, truth. Commander Holt sat on the deck, his face pale and eyes fixed on the horizon. The medics had tried to pull him below deck, but he refused. His parachute was still tangled around him, streaked with smoke and blood. He couldn't stop replaying it, the sound of her voice, the flash of light, the way she said, "Then live for me." And then nothing but silence. He turned the small device in his hands, the black box salvaged from her jet. It was cracked, scorched, barely functioning, but it pulsed faintly like a heartbeat refusing to stop. The medic approached carefully. "Sir, they want you in the cabin. Debrief starts in 5. Holt didn't move. "They can start without me." "Commander, she's still out there." The medic hesitated. "Sir, the wreckage." "I said she's still out there." His tone left no room for argument. The medic nodded quietly and walked away. Holt stared at the box again. "You told me once you didn't believe in ghosts, Cade," he muttered. "Looks like you turned into one anyway." Then the box crackled, faint static breaking through. He froze. "Sarah." More static, then a whisper so soft it could have been the wind. "You finished it." He blinked hard, breath catching. "Cade." Silence. But the light on the box blinked one last time, then faded out completely. He sat there for a long time, listening to the sea breathe. By dawn, the data she'd uploaded had reached every secure channel in the military, and by noon, it had reached everywhere else. The leak spread like wildfire, encrypted archives decrypted, Black Ops files turned into public history. Project Morningstar, Operation Blackbird, test logs, authorization codes, voice transcripts, all of it. Within 24 hours, the entire military chain of command was on fire. Some denied it. Some resigned. And some finally told the truth. In Washington, cameras flashed like lightning in marble halls. The press surrounded the steps of the Pentagon, shouting questions that no one dared to answer. The documents confirm cognitive weapon testing on live pilots. Who signed off on Operation Blackbird? Was Admiral Ross aware of the fatalities? Inside, Admiral Ross, the man who had once smirked at Sarah Cade like she didn't belong, stood before an inquiry panel. His uniform was pressed, his medals gleaming, but his eyes looked hollow. "Admiral," the chairman began, "is it true you authorized the continuation of Project Morningstar after the fatal incident in the Arabian Sea?" Ross hesitated. It was classified national defense research. Oversight was limited. Limited, the chairman leaned forward. It used live neural data from deceased pilots. Ross swallowed. It was an experimental interface. You turned them into algorithms, the chairman interrupted. You used human minds as code. The room went silent. Cameras clicked. Somewhere, someone muttered Sarah Cade's name. Ross looked down at the table. "She was a soldier," he said softly. "She knew what she was part of." "No, Admiral," the chairman replied coldly. "She knew what she was fighting against." Around the world, her story spread faster than the investigation could contain it. Headlines flared across every network. The pilot who exposed the sky. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cade's final mission. Leaks secret military AI program. Night Fox, the ghost who grounded a fleet. Classified files confirm illegal human-AI interface tests. Bravery or betrayal? The debate ignites over the cost of truth in wartime. Videos from her missions surfaced, declassified cockpit footage, her calm voice guiding SEAL teams through chaos. The world saw not a rebel or a deserter, but a protector. For the first time, they saw her. Holt found himself in front of one of those screens weeks later. He was sitting in a small, nondescript apartment overlooking the sea, the kind of place the government used to stash witnesses who had seen too much. He didn't sleep much anymore. He didn't talk to anyone either. But every day, he replayed her last transmission, the last few seconds before the light. You're close. Finish it. He didn't know if it was memory, hallucination, or something else. He only knew it kept him alive. There was a knock at the door. He opened it to find Commander Briggs standing there, uniform stripped of rank insignia. They're calling it a tribunal, Briggs said, but it's a funeral with paperwork. For her. For all of us, Briggs replied. Holt nodded. They'll try to bury her story, call it rogue action, containment breach. Briggs smiled sadly. Maybe, but ghosts don't stay buried long. He handed Holt a folder. These are copies of her logs, what she uploaded, keep them safe. Holt took the folder heavy in his hands. Where are you going? Somewhere the noise doesn't reach, Briggs said. You should try it sometime. He left. Holt stood in the doorway long after the sound of footsteps faded. Then he opened the folder. Inside were photos, Sarah beside her jet, grinning under desert sun, briefing notes in her sharp handwriting, and at the bottom a letter. It wasn't addressed to anyone, just a line written in pen. The truth isn't the enemy, silence is. Months passed. The world kept moving as it always did, but something had changed. Military reforms swept through the branches, forced transparency, new oversight, full shutdown of cognitive weapon projects. The Navy officially decommissioned the Morning Star Initiative. And somewhere, in the archives of the Defense Department, a file was quietly added under unresolved incidents. Night Fox status, KIA confirmed. Legacy under review. Holt knew better. He stood at the edge of the sea, wind cutting through his jacket. The same ocean that had taken her was calm now, deceptively gentle. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the cracked black box. He'd repaired it enough to make one small change, one frequency still active. He pressed play. A voice, faint but clear, filled the air. If you're hearing this, then you're still fighting. He smiled faintly. Still am. Then don't stop. The recording ended, but the sound lingered, soft static like a breath through wind. He looked out toward the horizon. You finished it, Cade, he said quietly. They can't bury it this time. The sun was setting, a line of fire sinking into the sea. He saluted once, then turned to leave. Behind him, the waves shifted just slightly, as if something far below the surface had moved. Weeks later, in a small news clip that most people ignored, a Navy radar station off the coast of Crete reported an anomaly. Unidentified aerial contact, no IFF, no engine signature, call sign reading NFX-07. They dismissed it as a glitch, a ghost in the system. But that night, one technician swore he heard a woman's voice come through the static before it vanished. Skies clear, mission complete. Across bases, memorials, and briefing rooms, the story of Night Fox became legend. Some said she was reckless. Some said she was right. Most said she was both. But every pilot who flew after her, every soldier who picked up a rifle, every officer who looked at classified data and hesitated before signing knew her name. They whispered it like a promise. Night Fox. A ghost who turned command into silence. A woman who taught them that obedience is easy, but conscience costs. And sometimes, the only way to serve your country is to make it face itself. Why does silence always come after truth, not before it? 6 months had passed since the sky burned. The world had moved on, or at least, it pretended to. New operations replaced old scandals. New wars were drafted under different names. Morningstar became a classified footnote in history, unauthorized cognitive experimentation. They erased the faces, the names. All except one. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cade. Night Fox. Her name lived on in whispers in flight schools, in training manuals, in the quiet corners of every hangar where young pilots sat staring at their helmets, wondering if courage still had a place in a world run by silence. Her story spread not through newspapers but through people. One mechanic told it to another, one soldier to a recruit, a story of the pilot who flew into a storm to save the truth. It wasn't told loudly. It didn't need to be. The Navy built a memorial on the western coast, a small, simple airstrip overlooking the sea. No statues, no grand speeches, just a steel plaque on a stone pedestal facing the horizon. It read, "In memory of those who spoke when silence was easier. LTCMDR, Sarah Knight Fox Cade. KIA, Operation Blackbird/Falcon Shield. Dignity doesn't speak, it acts." The inscription was Holt's doing. He fought the paperwork for months, the committees, the wording, the funding. He didn't want them to turn her story into propaganda. He wanted it to remain human, flawed, honest. That was how she would have wanted it. He visited every week, always alone, always at dawn. This morning the air was still, calm enough that the ocean reflected the sky perfectly, turning everything silver blue. Holt stood beside the plaque, a thermos of coffee in one hand, a small photo in the other, the same one she'd kept folded in her flight jacket, her, LJ, and their first aircraft. He set it down beside the plaque, anchoring it with a small stone. "She hated pictures," he said quietly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Said the sky doesn't need to be framed." A gull cried overhead, circling before gliding back toward the sea. He looked up, squinting at the sun. "They call you a martyr now," he murmured. "That word you hated, you'd laugh if you saw the headlines. Hero pilot exposes military corruption. You tell them you weren't a hero. You tell them you were just tired of lies." He took a slow sip of coffee, the wind brushing through his hair. "I still hear you, you know," he said softly. "Every time I walk past the hangar, every time I see a jet take off, that calm voice overcomes. Stay low, stay smart, stay alive." He chuckled under his breath. "Guess I managed 2 out of 3. He looked down again at the plaque. "They shut the program down like you wanted. The AI division's gone. No more cognitive mapping, no more neural pilots. But the technology's out there now. Someone will try again. You know how it goes. They'll just change the name, pretend it's new, pretend it's cleaner." His tone hardened. "When they do, I'll be ready." The wind carried the faint hum of a jet overhead, distant, fatting. For a moment he closed his eyes, and in that space between wind and silence, he heard her. "Holt." He smiled faintly. "Took you long enough. You kept your promise." "I tried." A pause, then, "That's all anyone can do." He opened his eyes, but she was gone. Just the sea and the sky, and the faint shimmer of heat rising from the tarmac. He whispered, "Goodbye, Fox." And then he corrected himself, voice breaking a little. "No, not goodbye, just clear skies." That night across the ocean, a young cadet sat alone in a simulator bay. She was new, barely 20, hair tied back, boots too clean to be worn in. The lights were low, the hum of machines echoing softly through the room. Her instructor had left her a training module labeled Archived Combat Record, NFX-07. Curious, she loaded it. The screen flickered, static, then sound. A woman's voice, calm, confident, measured. "Mission log, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cade. If you're hearing this, you're flying something that can kill you faster than you can think. So think faster, trust your instincts, not your fear." The cadet froze. She'd heard the name before, the legend whispered in the dorms. Night Fox. The voice continued. "And if someone tells you to shut up when you see something wrong, remember this. Silence doesn't protect you, it protects them." The cadet swallowed hard, watching the data play across the screen, the flight paths, the narrow dives, the impossible recoveries. The voice came again, softer this time. "Courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it just whispers and keeps flying anyway. The girl smiled, and somewhere deep in the static, she thought she heard another sound, faint, distant, the low, familiar hum of a jet engine fatting into the clouds. Weeks later, Holt returned to the memorial one last time. The sea was restless that morning, waves hitting the rocks with low, steady rhythm. He knelt beside the plaque, tracing her name with his fingers. The metal was cold, but the sun was rising fast. He spoke quietly, like a confession. "You know, I've been thinking," he said. "That day in the briefing room when the Admiral asked for your call sign, you could have said anything. You could have joked, could have played along. But you didn't. You looked him dead in the eye and said, 'Night Fox.'" He smiled faintly. "I used to wonder why." The wind brushed through the grass, soft as breath. "Now I get it," he whispered. "Foxes don't bark, they don't boast. They move through the dark unseen, but they always know where home is." He stood, brushing sand from his knees. The sea reflected sunlight like shards of glass. And as he turned to leave, he paused, something catching his eye far out over the water. A flash of light, too high to be a ship, too fast to be a bird. He shaded his eyes. For just a second he saw it, a dark silhouette slicing through the clouds, low and silent. Then gone. He smiled. "You always did hate farewells." That night a letter appeared on his desk, no return address, no fingerprints, just his name. Inside, a single sheet of paper. "Commander Holt. If you're reading this, it means you've stopped running from ghosts. Good. You were never built for silence. Neither was I. They'll rebuild Morningstar someday. When they do, remind them that data doesn't bleed, but people do. And if anyone ever asks for my call sign again, tell them it wasn't about being feared. It was about being heard." NF. Holt read it twice before folding it neatly and tucking it into his pocket. He didn't ask how it got there. Some truths didn't need proving. He looked out the window toward the dark horizon, where a faint shimmer of light moved along the clouds. Maybe it was a plane, maybe it was memory, maybe it was her. Didn't matter. He raised his coffee cup in salute, whispering, "Clear skies, Night Fox." And somewhere above radar, beyond reach, a lone signal blinked once more. "Call sign, NFX-07. Status active." The voice followed in static, fatting but sure. "Mission complete. Sky clear. Night Fox out."